presenting at a microcap conference in Melbourne last week. So it's seeking US FDA approval for its molecular solution, which detects gastrointestinal parasites. Look, that's part of the business. To tell us about that and its other projects in the pipeline, John Melki, CEO of Genetic Signatures, joins us live. John, welcome. I just had a conversation with a small cap investor who said what you really want is a company that solves problems and better than any other in the space can do. So what's your business? What problem are you primarily looking to address here?
No, what a great question. So we're a technology company, we're a diagnostic company, and we're focused on detection of infectious diseases. And that's a problem for obvious reasons. The most important is that it's a preventable cause of death. And we know that infectious diseases can, if we look at just one class, antimicrobial resistant bacteria or superbugs, as you may have heard them, they claim 5 million lives a year. That's, if I'm right, that's around 10 lives per minute. And so Genetic Signatures has developed a technology which allows us to better detect infectious agents. It's a technology that was invented here in Australia, developed here in Australia. And what it allows us to do is to develop test kits that can pick up infectious diseases, but not one at a time. It's what we call multiplex. So we can pick up a broad range of infections that may be causing the patient's symptoms. And obviously, COVID has shown us that you can have a sore throat and a runny nose and a fever and not have COVID. You may have another respiratory illness, which could be equally, influenza also has a death rate. So what our technology allows us to do is very quickly identify which infectious agent is causing a patient's symptoms. And our technology allows us to do that in a very fast turnaround time, in a very high throughput environment.
Okay, now, are you the only ones doing it this way?
Our own free-based technology, which was developed here, is very unique to us. So we're talking about molecular diagnostics, which is really identifying an organism, a bacteria or virus or protozoan at the genetic level. That's all molecular means. We pick up the DNA or the RNA. But where Genetic Signatures smarts come in is that we've developed a way to actually make the test simpler by changing the sequence of the organism. And I know that that's probably getting technical, but a non-technical description is probably spelling. And we know that the Americans like to spell with a Z, Australia likes to spell with an S. So really they're variants of the same word, like realize is a variant of the same word. But what we do, in a sense, is we change the Z to an S. So when we're looking for that word realize, we can pick up all the variants. And that translates into what we do, detecting infectious diseases, when we know there are so many variants and so many mutants that come out every single day.
Now, when it comes to the business side of Genetic Signatures, where's the revenue primarily coming from right now?
So we've had strong commercial adoption in our home market in Australia, but we are at that point where we're expanding into Europe and the US. So we have had a record year. It's 35 million, up 25%, and about 90% of that has come from the domestic market. But we are really focused now on taking the same tests into those bigger markets of Europe and the US. That's how you opened with. Our first FDA clearance in the US is something that we're striving for. And if you look at it purely from even just a population base or even just looking at molecular diagnostics revenue, Australia speaks for 1% to 2% of the entire global revenue. Europe and the US speak for about 75%. So we believe the technology we have here will be equally as important in Europe and the US, and we've already started making those inroads, particularly into Europe, where 4 of our products already have regulatory clearance to sell.
Okay, so you've got clearance to sell in Europe, but you're not selling yet, then it doesn't sound like. So what's the timeline?
We are certainly selling into Europe. We have direct operations in the UK, in Germany. We have warehousing in the Netherlands and in London. And that really we benefited over the pandemic. Yes, we were able to pivot early. We were able to develop a test that detected COVID. And that allowed us to make inroads into those bigger markets. So there are people using us every day in Europe, in Australia, around the world. The US requires a slightly more stringent regulatory process, which is what we recently announced as having finished recruitment of the clinical trial. So we're now working on resolving the results for all of those patient results, and we will then be submitting that to the FDA, which opens the US market for us. We really have identified an unmet need for enteric protozoan detection. So these are the parasites that are in your belly that can give you gastroenteritis. We've identified an unmet need there where our genetic signatures 3-base technology can pick up 8 of the most common parasites that infect the gastrointestinal tract. Our closest competitor only detects 3, which is why we're very excited by the US.
Yeah, but like, how do you, where would your technology be used? Like, is it in clinics? Is it in hospitals? How do you get in there? Because you need to know the US market and the healthcare system there really well, to make significant inroads from everything I've been told over the years.
It's a great question. So our customer base are pathology labs. They could be hospital labs, they could be government labs, they could be those big private laboratories, and we focused on high throughput. So our technology allows these labs, again, identifying an unmet need of throughput when you're looking for a broad number of pathogens. So our customers are able to screen for thousands of patients a day, but each patient can be interrogated for perhaps 20 possible organisms that cause that disease. We have chosen to go direct in the US. It is a good question. It's because of the concentration of testing laboratories that we see in the US. So we know there are 5.5 million traditional tests done in the US. This is looking down a microscope. And we know that a molecular solution will improve patient results. We know that it will improve result turnaround time. And for the lab doing the test, it changes it from a cost center to a profit center because there's an existing reimbursement code called CPT code, which our customers would be able to claim. And that's actually $260 for each test that they perform.
Now, fair is fair. I asked the previous CEO the same question. What is going on with the share price? I think it's down by 55% year to date.
I did hear you ask that question, and was hoping you wouldn't ask me. But it's not something atypical for a technology company in Australia. What we're talking about is value, we have had some downward pressure on the share price, which is crazy. I think it's really a competition for the 1,400 companies on the ASX. But we last raised in 2019 at about $1 on annual revenues of 5 million. We're now at annual revenues of 35 million. We've expanded into Europe. We've expanded into the US. So for the reason for the microcap, etc., is simply to tell Australians that this is a company, a technology that was invented in Australia, and they're welcome to come on that journey with us. I asked a question at the microcap conference, have you heard of us before? Most hadn't. We've been very busy during the pandemic, and we're now sort of catching our breath as we continue to expand with our other tests that we had approved pre-pandemic. And it's really time to let everybody know what this little company is doing as we go global.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. John Melki,
Thanks, Nadine.
CEO of Genetic Signatures, joining us.